Okay, class, so today we're going over Unit 9, which is representing and describing data. Our first concept is going to be summarizing categorical data. So all that means is that we're going to represent the data using relative frequency tables, which you see in front of you, and percent bar graphs, as well as describe the data distribution using tools such as the mode and the percent of data values in each category. Okay, so basically all that means is we're going to take some data and then we're going to put it in a frequency table and calculate the relative frequency based off of that information. We're also just going to talk about some things about the data, just summarizing it, and some things that we observe. Okay, so let's go ahead and just jump right into it. Our first question says, Melissa buys 8 guppies, 6 mollies, 1 catfish, 3 swordtails, and 2 tetras for her aquarium. Make a relative frequency table of the fish Melissa buys. So as you can see, our relative frequency table is to the left. Our category is going to be type of fish, which are guppies, mollies, catfish, swordtail, and tetras. Then we have our relative frequency section to the right. It's separated into 2 categories because on one side, I want you guys to put a fraction. On the second side, I want you to put your actual percent after you've calculated that from your fraction. Now, the first thing that we have to notice about a relative frequency table is the fact that we need to figure out how many total data points we have. Okay? Now, let's just go ahead and count that. We have 6 guppies. Sorry about that, y'all. It took a while. We have 8 guppies, 6 mollies, 1 catfish, 3 swordtails, and 2 tetras. So, in total, I have 8 plus 6, which is 14, plus 1, 15, plus 3, 18, plus 2 is going to give us 20. So we have 20 total data points here. Okay? Now, since it's out of 20, how many guppies do I have? I have 8 out of 20 guppies. How many mollies do I have? I have 6 out of 20 mollies. How many catfish? I have 1 out of 20 catfish. How many swordfish? 3 out of 20. And then how many tetras? I have 2 out of 20 tetras. Okay? Now, from here, all we need to do is put everything into a percentage. Now, I'll show you a quick example. So 8 out of 20. Remember, this is percent, so it's out of 100. So we have to figure out what x is. 20 times what number equals 100? We have times 5. So 8 times 5 is going to give us 40% for guppies. And then following that same pattern, I'm just going to multiply everything by 5. 6 times 5 is 30. So this is going to be 30% that are mollies. 1 times 5 is 5, which is 5% that are catfish. 3 times 5 is 15, so 15% are swordtails. And then 10%, 2 times 5 is 10, is going to be tetras. So if we go ahead and add everything up, we have 40 plus 30, which is 70. And then 70 plus 5, which is 75. 75 plus 15 is going to give us 90, and 90 plus 10 will give us a full 100%. So now we know that we did this correctly. Okay, so after this, we can now use this information in order to create what we call a percent bar graph. Now, for a percent bar graph, all I'm going to do is create a bar graph, as you can see at the bottom here, from percents 0 to 100. Now, at this point, I'm just filling things in. So I'm going to go ahead and change my color to purple. So for guppies, we have about 40% guppies. So that's going to be 10, 20, 30, 40% guppies. Okay? So I'm just going to go ahead and put this here. This will be guppies. Okay? Now, we have 30% mollies. So that's 10, 20, 30. I'm going to put the mollies as blue. So this is going to be 10, 20, 30. And as you can see, if you split them up into 10 percentages, it'll be easier to properly space everything out. So we have mollies. Okay, then we have a small one. We have catfish. So let's just make catfish green. So catfish is right here. It's going to be only 5. and then I'm going to write CATFISH. Then we have swordtail. So swordtail is 15. So I already have 5 here. I'm going to go ahead and add this other 10. So this is going to be 10 plus 5, which is going to give me 15. So this is going to give me my swordtail. And then last but not least, I'm just going to go ahead and color this one black. This is going to be our tetras. Okay, and that's basically it. So now let's talk about some categories. What would be my mode in this situation? So now mode just means the number that shows up the most, or in this case the category that shows up the most. So our mode here is going to be guppies. Okay, our category that shows up the most is going to be guppies. Okay, so now let's just do another example really quick. Devin is growing tulips in his garden. He has 24 tulips, 24 red tulips, 11 yellow tulips, and 15 purple tulips. Make a frequency table, then a percent bar graph, and describe the distribution. So 24 plus 11 is going to get us to 35, and then 35 plus 15 will give us to 50. So of course we always have to find our total. Our total is going to be 50 tulips. Okay, so our red tulips, how many red tulips do we have? So as you can see, we have 24 out of 50 red tulips. Yellow tulips, we have 11 out of 50. And then purple tulips, we have 15 out of 50. Okay, now all I need to do is turn these into percents. So let's start with 24, and then over 100, and then x. So what number times 50 is going to give me 100? Okay, that's a pretty quick one. So times 2 times 2. So that means I have to multiply all of these numbers by 2 in order to get my percent. So 24 times 2 is going to give us 48%. 11 times 2 is going to give us 22%. And then 15 times 2 is going to give us 30%. Okay, so at this point we've completed our frequency table. Now let's go ahead and put our frequency table into a relative frequency bar graph. So as you can see over here, we have our relative frequency bar graph. Our first one, red tulips, is going to be about 48%. So I would say 48 is just about here. I'm just going to go ahead. It's not the straightest line, but yes, there you go. Now we have our yellow tulips, which are 22%. I'm just going to go ahead and make that blue. So this is going to be around 22 right here, which is going to be our yellow. Oh, I guess it is yellow. I should probably make it yellow, right? Okay, so as you can see, we have our yellow here. And then purple, which is about 30%. So I'm just going to put this up here, and this will be about 30%. Okay, now let's just take all that data and transfer it to a percent bar graph that's horizontal instead of vertical. Then this is a percent frequency table. So let's start off with our purple tulips, which will be 10, 20, 30. This will be our purple. Next we have our red. Let's do our red next. Actually, let's do our yellow so that we could just end it with our red. Our yellow is going to be 22. So 10, 20, and then it's going to be a little bit over 50. All right, so this will be our 22. Okay, kind of hard to see. And then lastly, our red tulips, which are 48%, which is basically 50, basically half of this. So now that's going to be everything else. Alright, so this is going to be our red. Okay, now there are plenty of things we could get from all of this information here. For one, our mode category is going to be our red tulips. So mode is going to be red tulips. there are plenty of things we could say about this information. We could say that the combined purple and yellow tulips are 52%. We could say that the combined red and purple tulips are 78%. There's a lot of information that we could get just by looking at this data. And that's it.